What is a motor skill? A motor skill is a practiced ability to achieve a predetermined result using movement. We all need many different motor skills in our everyday lives. In sport, learning a skill gives us coordination, timing, accuracy, consistency, and results. There's a great variety of motor skills. These variations include the size of the actions required and the degree of precision involved. One of the most important variables is whether open or closed skills are used in a particular sport. The major factor governing whether open or closed skills are used in a particular sport is the degree of predictability of the performance environment. The performance environment of some sports is essentially unchanging. In other sports, the performance environment is unpredictable and is constantly changing. Closed skills are used if the environmental conditions are basically identical each time the skill is performed. The objective is to reproduce the same movement pattern each and every time the action is performed. Open skills, on the other hand, are required in sports where the performance environment is unpredictable and is constantly changing. Fast ball sports, for example, rely on open skills. The exact performance of the action depends on a number of variables, such as the position of each player, the flight of the ball, and the desired result. To perform well using open skills, the player must be able to adapt the basic playing actions to meet an ever-changing playing environment. In cricket, for example, the batsman has to decide very rapidly which stroke to play, depending on the line, length, and speed of the bowler's delivery. Most open skills are performed with a very limited time for decision-making. A fast bowler can release the ball at a speed of up to 150 kilometres per hour, giving the batsman less than half a second for decision-making and execution of the stroke. Anticipation is therefore a very important part of performing an open skill. When producing skilled movement, the human functions in a similar way to a high-speed computer. The player receives information or data from the environment in the form of cues from the senses, performs central processing in the brain, and produces skilled movement as an output. The cues are gathered by sight, sound, touch, and the kinesthetic sense, which internally monitors the exact movements of the body. This player is about to receive a pass. The brain has to make sense of the incoming cues in order to eventually produce the skilled action. In the brain, there are at least three essential stages of information processing: perception, decision-making, and response organization. The perceptual stage involves determining what is currently going on in the environment. The basketballer has to determine the speed and direction of the oncoming ball, the positions of teammates and opponents, and her own position relative to the basket. The player must then decide on the most appropriate catching action to use. Once this decision has been made, the brain has to rapidly organize the performance of the desired action. The necessary motor commands are sent via the nervous system to the appropriate motor units of the muscles, and the hands, arms, and the rest of the body are positioned in readiness for the catch. The kinesthetic sense then feeds information back to the brain about the precise position of the body components, and the instructions are continually updated until the ball is caught and a shot is made at the basket. The result of the action is monitored and remembered so as to help to guide the future performances of the skill. The athlete must have a high level of skill if he or she is going to succeed in competition. High levels of skill are required in open skill sports such as tennis. These same high levels of skill are also needed in closed skill sports such as discus, and hurdling. These levels of skill can only be achieved by a clear analysis of the task and a gradual and thoughtful approach to the training process. Learning by trial and error is far less effective. The learning of a skill should follow this basic progression. The athlete should learn the movements that are required, then how to perform them skillfully, and finally, how to apply those skills in competition. These stages of acquiring competitive skills are called the cognitive phase, the associative phase, and the autonomous phase. To begin with, in the cognitive stage, the athlete needs to become familiar with the game and the range of movements involved.
Just watching now, we're going to go to the rhythm of running.
It's very important that the athlete is given clear instruction on the correct performance of these movements.
Then back, then from there, we'll go into a up-down. It'll be up and up-down. With me now? Up and up-down. Good. Don't forget to lean forward. Up and up-down. Now, just watching there for a minute. We're going to go now to running over the hurdles and between the hurdles, and we're going to run 3 strides between hurdles.
During this cognitive phase, the athlete should be given the opportunity to practice the newly acquired skills.
3, up, 1, 2, 3, and stopping there. With me now. Ready? Go. 1, 2, 3, up, 1, 2, 3, up, 1, 2, 3, and run.
It's also very important that only the correct movements are learned.
Not so much
Incorrect
out of the
movements
back of the
can be
hand.
very difficult to eliminate later on.
As the elbow is bent, you lose power and the thing wobbles on release. Always arm straight. To there. Right, you go now.
A useful method of acquiring new
Drop back.
skills is chaining. This
Pivot and
works by
lock.
breaking down the movement into a number of separate parts, which are learned one by one. These can then be joined together, just like the links of a chain. In this way, complex actions can be mastered. Practice then brings a refinement of the skills so that they can be executed more smoothly. The autonomous phase is only reached after lots of practice. Less conscious control is needed, and then the action can be performed automatically. Now that the skill has become automatic, the player can concentrate on how to use it to the best effect in the game. The principle of specificity applies to learning a skill just as it does to the other aspects of training. Practice should simulate game conditions as closely as possible. It's particularly important to practice at the full playing speed. In the case of open skills, the variety and pressures of the game should be simulated. For team games, the grids system of organising a training session is a very useful way for individual players to concentrate on learning key aspects of the game. This system of practice allows decision-making skills to be learnt under controlled specific conditions. The grid system is particularly useful in teaching defensive skills in team sports. With closed skills, practice should be directed towards obtaining consistency. There's a commonly used phrase, perfect practice makes perfect, which suggests that practicing the correct movements under the correct conditions will produce the best results. This is true, but only up to a point. The athlete must get feedback, particularly from the coach, on how well the action has been performed, if continuing improvement is to be achieved. So ultimately, perfect practice with knowledge of results makes perfect.